Hi, everybody, and welcome to the live stream. Good evening. My name is Nadia. I'm a UK Global Talent Visa recipient and coach. I got endorsed for this visa myself last year as a software engineer, and since then, I've been helping talented IT professionals increase their chances of getting endorsed for the visa as well. So, on my YouTube channel, if you are not following me yet, you should totally do that. I normally share content around the topic of the visa, and I also interview talented professionals who got endorsed for the visa in the past in the hopes of encouraging you and also informing you and helping you on the journey towards your visa. So today I'm very excited to be joined by Dina. One second, let me bring her on. So Dina is a career coach and founder, and she is coming from a product background. And today we'll be talking about both being a career coach, what it's like, who needs a coach, and all that stuff, but also what it takes to get a UK Global Talent Visa if you are a product manager and you have product background. Thank you so much for joining.
Hi, Nadia. It's nice to be on with you today.
Yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to tell your story and spending your time with us. So let's start with some intros. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what is your professional background in a bit more detail than I just did, and yeah, what kind of brought you to the UK?
Awesome. I'm Dina. Hi, everybody. Thank you for watching us today or later. I was born in Canada, grew up in Jordan, and moved to the UK around 6 years ago. I studied engineering in the US and then decided it wasn't quite for me, and I had my personal pivot into very intentionally into health tech. I basically have built my career. I started off as an analyst and then moved into product, and then basically in my last job I was leading a product team in a biotech company within mental health. Throughout my journey, I realized how important coaching is, and that's something I would have definitely needed even before applying to university to figure out what to study. So when I found out about coaching, I decided that's how I want to contribute back in the ways that I would have wanted to receive support earlier on. So I did my coaching training at the University of Cambridge and have been coaching people over the last few years on the side of my job. And most recently, I decided to commit to that full time. So now I'm coaching individuals and coaching people within organizations, mainly around in the tech space.
Yeah, really cool intro. Thank you so much. Also, all the links to Dina and how to get in touch with her are in the description. So I do recommend that you check her out afterwards. So you mentioned that you were studying engineering, but then at some point you realized that you wanted to do something else. Was there anything specific that you didn't like about engineering and something that draw you towards health tech and this sector?
Yeah, so as cringy and cliche as it sounds, I've always been driven to help people. At the same time, also I loved math, and that was the topic, the what I really was actually good at and wanted to study. Everybody was like, if you study math, you will become a math teacher. And I love my math teachers, but I didn't see myself as a math teacher. So a lot of advice that I got is, if you're good at math, then you study engineering. If you're good at biology, then you study medicine. That's kind of like the background where I grew up. And then if you like history, study law, and otherwise be a businessman. That's businessman. Yeah. And yeah, that's like the mathematics part is what drew me into engineering. I so basically, and also I have like my dad's a civil engineer, and he enjoyed doing that, and as a role model I basically followed into his footsteps. And I did enjoy the part of engineering. I focused on the environmental side, and I was always interested in how the environment affects human health. So that's kind of what drew me into engineering. I thought this is the way that I want to contribute by providing access to energy, electricity, food, water. Just didn't understand how there are some areas in the world that lacked some resources and some areas that don't. So ultimately, I was always fascinated in accessibility and human health, and I thought that was my path towards contributing. But when I came to study engineering, it was like mostly chemistry. Didn't really enjoy being in wastewater plants. I think the theory was better than the reality. And also graduating in the US, in order to work in these big um, engineering firms, a lot of them required like US passports, which I did not have. And at university, I was um, basically I started iterating from my first internship. I went and worked in an engineering consulting firm, didn't enjoy it. Then I was at in Palo Alto, so I was exposed to a lot of startups. So I saw that startup space and got intrigued. So basically, intentionally was trying to understand what I like, who do I want to surround myself with. I love that atmosphere of like entrepreneurs and wanting to change things in the world, and um, just the potential of tech in solving a lot of problems. So yeah.
Really interesting. So your website and your business is called Major Confusions, which I really like, and I think it's really clever and it describes those things really well. So I think you went through a lot of changes yourself when it comes to your career development, and you tried a lot of things on your own, and you saw what worked for you, what didn't work. Was there a part of you that felt like when you were, since I'm also somebody who changed careers and directions quite a lot, and I think I'm not on my last iteration yet. So I think that the question is whether you felt at any point that you were kind of giving up on a dream, or did you ever regret the time that you put into your previous role? I guess you can understand what I mean. Yeah.
No, I don't. I never regret it because like even though I say like engineering wasn't the right thing for me, I still learned a lot. It did expose me to a lot of things. I enjoyed parts of it, and ultimately like you, I don't know who actually remembers what they studied in university besides like the experiences and the friends they made anyways, unless it's like a very specific degree, obviously like the for more generalist majors. Yeah, obviously I'm wrong, but like in the US, like undergrads are more like cross function, like like very interdisciplinary. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of enjoying every part of the process, and we kind of make decisions as well as we could have at that point in time. So for me, I like never look back and regret because we're just like learning as we go. And at some point I was like, yeah, I'm just doing like process of elimination. Now I learned that like you could also increase your awareness of what you like by talking to a coach, and that could have probably expedited some of my realizations. But then obviously it wouldn't have led me to where I am today, where I like love coaching and helping people do
Yeah.
that. So I think it's kind of iterating, and at every different point in life, like you're prioritizing different things. And as you said, you're not in your last iteration, and perhaps I'm definitely not. So it's like it's just like trying to maximize the process, like learning at the same time, enjoying it, surrounding yourself with people that you want to be around. Yeah, and yeah, there's no point kind of being stuck in a job thinking you don't have a choice. I think that's like the key thing. It's like you always have a choice. You always have, and if you feel like you don't have a choice, it's like important to work on why you feel like you don't have a choice.
Yeah, I think it's easy to look back on your experience and really be harsh with yourself and think that you made really horrible decisions, and like, how come did you stay in this job for so long, or like, how come did you make this choice? How come did you choose that school? But honestly, as I said, like, you're probably operating with the best information and the best way you could at that time. You had limited information, you didn't have much experience, so maybe your decisions weren't like the best, but you did your best. I think what really struck me in what you said is that initially that you didn't have much of an idea of what coaching was and like how this could help you. So what was there a point when you learned about what a career coach was, and what was your first interaction with this? Because as you said, you can learn on your own and you can learn by trial and error, but also you can get help from somebody else who can help you make those decisions faster and iterate faster.
Yeah, honestly, I wish I remember when was the first time I came across coaching. I just remember myself like seeing the program at the university, deciding to apply for it, and then being immersed in like what coaching is and how it can help people in the program. But I don't remember the exact moment where I learned about coaching. But since I learned, I've always been coached, and that has helped me a lot navigating my career. Yeah.
Yeah, so I do want to talk about coaching more, but I think that first we should talk about the visa and kind of go circle back to the topic of
Yes.
coaching because obviously there is a lot there to unpack. And also for people who watch this live, if you have questions about the visa, but also about coaching, about the UK, anything that sparks your interest, I think we'll be happy to handle them as well. So you mentioned that you had, so you worked in companies in the United States. So where did the UK come into play, and how did you learn about the opportunities to move to the UK? I guess was it initially on the global talent visa, or did you go through a different route? And how did you decide to move to the UK? I guess a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's funny because I was preparing for this. Just I thought it would be nice to read my personal statement, right?
Yeah.
So the reason I moved to the UK is simply like my older brother was part of Entrepreneurs First, and it's like a startup incubator in London, and now they're around the world. So I learned that they were sponsoring not sponsoring, but they were suggesting he go through the technician route for his visa. So that's how I learned about it. So he was moving to London. I'm like, okay, since you're moving, I don't want to stay living in. I love the US, but it was too far from Jordan. So I thought having family around is super important. So because my brother was moving, I decided to also move to the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when I first moved, I actually, because I have the Canadian passport, I moved under a visa called called the Youth Mobility Visa for anybody who was watching. There's the Commonwealth visa for I think when you're under 30 or 31, you can apply for this 2-year visa, and it's basically allows you to do anything. Like you don't have to work in a specific field, and it's intended for people within the Commonwealth to travel around and for young people to travel around and explore different areas. So I made use of this visa when I first moved to London, which allowed me to, because I knew like getting sponsorship at that time would be very difficult, especially as like a recent grad with not a lot of work experience, and a lot of UK graduates weren't getting jobs. So I didn't expect to find a job quite quickly that would sponsor me. So I thought if I would make that part easier for my first employer, then hopefully by being on that 2-year visa, I could kind of build up my CV. Knowing I actually, so basically, I knew about technician for like 2 years before actually applying for it. So I was kind of prepping my CV and my everything that I needed to make myself ready for that application.
Was there anything specific that you remember doing to prepare your CV and to increase your chances of getting endorsed?
Yeah, so like for example, like the mentoring part is quite important.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting over a cold right now.
No worries.
So you might see my voice.
Hope you feel better soon.
Thank you. Yeah, so like the mentoring part was important. So that was already like a passion of mine, kind of like helping people. So also like the coaching training, I put it on my application with the hopes of like coaching more people in tech. I had some like side design project, like kind of like product projects on the side. What else? Kind of being part of the health tech community. And yeah, that's
so it was about like probably building up on your public profile and the, I guess, second criteria for kind of the community work and community contributions. Was there a point when you realized that, okay, like I'm ready to apply for the technician visa, or was it driven by the fact that your visa was expired?
Yeah, it was driven by the fact it was driven by the fact that my visa was expiring, and yeah, I needed to find a new route. So luckily, like when I was applying for the technician visa, I was about to start working with like a entrepreneurs first company, which was a machine, like they call it a software as a medical device, which means a company which basically they were using software to diagnose deep vein thrombosis, which is a blood clot in the leg. It's called Sono. So the founder was super open and supportive. He's like, Dina, let's try to get you through the technician route. And if that doesn't work, we can sponsor you. But I really wanted to go through that route because it's, you just have freedom. And I guess
Yeah.
freedom is important. And like working at startups where you don't know like how long their lifespan will be, having a visa that's not tied to an employer is really important just for like stability. So even choosing that startup is like they're like super tech focused. So like one of their like machine learning scientists actually wrote one of my recommendations, and then the CTO also wrote another recommendation for me. So choosing a company that was like super tech heavy, yeah, it was, I think, probably good for my application and showing that I'm working on that type of product that will like ultimately go into like clinical trials. And we already had like relationships with like Oxford University clinics and stuff. Was good for my application.
When was it? Just to put it in the context for people.
So I think like I already had time on my Commonwealth visa while working in the startup. So I had that experience in my application. So I was
Yeah.
able to show that I've worked in 2 startups within health tech. This is what I've contributed so far. This is what I'm working on. These are like the experts in the field that endorse me. So yeah, it was, I think that helped as well.
Yeah, I guess my question was about when was it in terms of the year, so that people can put it into
Oh, the
context as
year.
to
Sorry.
the
Let me think.
university.
It's just like, let's go to the folder. 2019.
2019. Yeah. So just for context, I think the rules changed a bit since then. I mean, the details of the rules, right? So if you're watching this, you know, June 2023 or further down the line, you should always double check that the requirements of technician, that you're following the most recent requirements. But the general gist of it and the general approaches to creating a successful application, they still stay the same. I've even talked to people who got endorsed in 2016, and a lot of their tips still applied. So yeah, just putting it into context. So what was the process of preparing the documents like? How long did it take you? What was it like in general?
I think the key thing for me is like, it was like a goal that I put that was like kind of 2 years from now. So it was like, okay, I kind of made a checklist. This is what I need. And then made sure like I was like ticking these boxes throughout. So like, I think the preparation of the document wasn't like too long. I think the longest thing is to kind of chase people to like write the recommendation letters and like like making sure that they sent them to you and so on. I think that part is like the longest part because you're asking someone for a favor and you don't really want to keep like reminding them. I think that was like the longest part for me. But like beyond that, it's like preparing like the personal statement and um I guess like a few other of like the proofs. I think a realistic thing would be like it took me maybe like a month with like my job and everything. Um yeah, and yeah, but I did it alone. I didn't work with like lawyers or anybody, so obviously it could be faster.
Yeah.
I don't know how others do
But
it, but
it's quite fast as well. Still a month, but I would say that yeah, with a coach it can be faster. I think the fastest case that I've seen was where it took the candidate in like 10 days to prepare the full application, so the full 45 pages of it, and I was kind of supporting through strategy, reviewing the documents, kind of iteratively, but it was the fastest, I think, like 10 days or something like this. But it was like full-time work. So
oh
if
my,
you have a job, I think, yeah, it was intense, but yeah, I think if you have a full-time job, you need to budget time, like a month. I think is a good time, but 2 months I think is reasonable. But then
I
some
think
people take up to half a year.
yeah, it depends if you have a timeline, like a deadline, right? Like I was already in the UK. I wanted to stay in the job. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like just, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's really helpful, like having that checklist and just because I don't know if it's still the same now, but they're pretty clear about like the requirements. So I translated to like, okay, these are like what I need to get done.
So in terms of the letters of recommendation, you started to talk about it briefly. Maybe you could talk a little bit in more detail about the letters of recommendation, who were the kind of expert that you asked for support, and any kind of tips for people who want to get letters of recommendation from strong experts and maybe worry about it, because this is a common problem. People feel that they can't really ask for such a favor and they really struggle with this.
Yeah, so I guess two of the recommendation letters, one was from the like ML scientist at the company I was working with, and then the CTO. And then I also had recommendations from two people who I was kind of working with during my time at Stanford. So one was like a co-founder of a big tech company, and then one was also like, actually both of them were kind of technical founders of tech companies.
Was it
So
difficult to convince them? Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. Basically, I made sure that everybody had a different angle, like of what they were saying about me. So I made sure that it's not like everybody's saying the same thing, but everybody is focusing on a different aspect of me that I want to highlight in the application. That's kind of how so it's kind of coming at it from like different perspectives versus all the same.
Yeah, I think it's important when you start planning this to understand, I always start with criteria. So people should choose their criteria first and then think of like what should they want the experts to cover in the letters of recommendation, and then making sure that the things that you basically want to be heard, they are in the letters. And, this is not always easy, but if you have this kind of strategy, I think it really helps. Do you remember which other support and evidences did you use for the application? Because you need not only 3 letters of recommendation, but also up to 10 evidence pieces that support your other criteria.
Yeah, I also had the proof that I was doing this coaching program. I also had a letter of like proof of mentorship from like a software engineer, and like more explanations around like, because coaching and mentoring are also different. Mentoring is like kind of sharing your experience with somebody. So I did some of that volunteering mentoring on the side. So I got a letter or like a proof of mentoring from there. I also on the product side illustrated like kind of like a product portfolio and like 2 pages of like the type of work and products I've worked on. Just so I'm not missing anything. Yeah, I guess I've showed my employment like payslips and employment agreements from like the both health tech companies I worked with. Yeah, and then I also showed like I started like major confusions on the site like many years ago. So kind of that work as well, like linked to my website and I think a few screenshots.
Yeah. How did you so you said that you started your coaching practice on the side, right? While still working a full-time job. So how did this come about, and how did you decide to start a side project like this?
Yeah, to be honest, it was like not very formal, the side project. It was kind of like I would say like a hobby. Like I wasn't like monetizing it or anything. I was just like doing it to help people, and it was like rewarding. It just felt like something I really enjoyed and I wanted to do. That it's like that thought, like something you're like thinking about all the time. So it's just like, okay, let me start doing it. Yeah, that's how it.
Yeah, I understand totally.
You
So
would really.
yeah. So yeah, I was actually I think monetizing my help from the very beginning, because it was just I was also like I was lucky to switch to global talent visa, which allowed me to have a side project, which I think is also like a benefit of this visa. compared to skilled worker where I was before, which didn't allow me to do anything other than just work for my employer. So it was really, I think, a big limitation. So for instance, like I was invited to give like a public talk, a paid talk, and I couldn't accept money for it. So yeah, but I understand kind of where it's coming from, like that you start doing something organically and then it kind of grows into a business. Was there, like, maybe you could explain to us, like, what is the difference between a mentor and a coach for, for the audience that is, my channel, so people who work in tech, like, how do they distinguish? And I think those words, they float around, but not everybody understands what the difference is.
Yeah, I wrote like a long article about this a long time ago, so I can add it. Like I can send it to you to add it.
Yeah. I will add it. Yeah.
So basically, mentorship is basically somebody with more experience on a specific aspect that is sharing that experience with somebody who wants to learn it. And like mentoring could be, yeah, it's basically around like the experience and the skill set and sharing that with somebody who doesn't have it. So it doesn't have to be somebody older than someone. It's just around like the experience, and someone could mentor you on one aspect and you can be mentored by the same person in another aspect. So yeah, that's what mentoring is in a small like a just so basically like a director of product could mentor a PM on product management skills, for example, and basically teach them like frameworks and share their experiences on how they dealt with stakeholders. And basically the mentee could take some of that experience. Some of it might apply to them, some of it might not. It's just like somebody sharing their advice or like what they've learned and so on. With coaching, it's more about believing that the coachee kind of knows the answer, and the coach's responsibility is to ask questions, carefully listen, basically enable the client, the coachee, to get to the answers themselves. For example, like for you would come to me as like, I'm not sure if I want to leave my job, and as a coach, I won't be like, from my experience, like this is a good idea or this is not a good idea. It would be like, okay, like asking you questions about the situation, and through the questioning, you would kind of increasing awareness around like what you actually think or feel, or what you might even come to like, okay, I need to do X research in order to do this. So it's kind of you coming up with the answers through the coach asking you questions.
So in a way, it does sound similar to some types of therapy. So in the sense of a specialist asking you questions and you coming up with answers, and not somebody kind of telling you what to do. So what is the difference then, if people think about it, between like a coach or, and somebody who is a psychologist or a therapist or a counselor who's like more of a medical professional? So what is the difference here, if you can describe it?
Yeah, I would definitely wouldn't say that a coach is a medical professional at all. Like therapy is like a medical like a professional that works on like mental health topics, and yeah, they have like the psychological training to ask questions about like past emotions, to be able to deal with like present day and like future emotions. And it's kind of like centered around like this like training, that psychological training that they have. With coaching and with therapy, they could even like, it's like, yeah, it's different in a way that like they're going through like the past and so on in order to like make sense of the present. With coaching, it's kind of like more a strategist, that like a thought partner with you to enable you to kind of like plan the future, and like think about, okay, like yeah, kind of planning. If you want to like, for example, you're like a project manager and like you're unsure, like, is this the right path for me? And then kind of the coach would go through that with you, and then turns out you have like a really like a lot of interest in software, and then kind of strategically planning your way into like product management, for example. It's more like a strategic thought partner, whereas therapy is like a medical profession. So I also heard like it's very common that like a therapist could refer someone to a coach, and a coach could refer someone to a therapist. So there are like clear boundaries where a
Hmm.
coach shouldn't go towards
Yeah.
areas where they're not trained for.
Yeah, I think that there are clear like ethical differences between the two kind of fields as well, and what they can help you with and what they can't help you with. Also, I once heard somebody describe it as coaching being more focused on the future, I think, as you said, and with therapy, as a lot of it, I think, is that deals with the past and kind of the causes of your emotions and feelings. But I think that I think, as you said, like I think ethical professional will really advise you, what you need and what you don't need. I think one interesting example is that, but maybe you can confirm if it's true, is that a coach is actually allowed to be friends with their clients. Is it true?
Yeah, I think it's you can have a coaching relationship with like your coworkers. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
trainings for managers to also coach their employees, and yeah,
Hmm.
I think it's a good way to say it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't speak about therapy. Like I'm not. Yeah, it's just with coaching, it's like there are clear boundaries. You can enter the coaching because you
Hmm.
have to be in that coaching mindset as well. Okay, do you
Yeah.
want to be coached now? Like, are you ready for coaching? Like, because you need to kind of think creatively and outside of the box. Sometimes, like, no, like, I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I get it. I think I was in situations sometimes in the past where, if you work as an engineer, you have an engineering manager. And I think a lot of the time, if the manager is not actually coding with you on the team, which is the case in a lot of companies, I think their role becomes a bit like a coach. And I think that the one-on-ones can become like coaching sessions, even if you are not really ready, or
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
you don't necessarily. Yeah, you don't want to be coached by this specific person, which is again really, I think, kind of a challenging situation because it's your manager, right? So I guess the question is, how do I understand whether I need a career coach and whether I'm ready to go to a coach? And I guess the next question is, how do I choose a coach, which is something that I really wanted to ask you, because right now, probably as you have noticed, it's a very popular profession. And a lot of people are training to become coaches. So how do I understand if somebody is actually good, and how do I choose them?
Yeah, I think what you said about like sometimes like somebody could like if an engineering manager could coach you and you're like not ready for it. I think that's an important point because like I think trust and safety and like chemistry is like super core for the coaching relationship.
Yeah.
So like both parties, like you need to be like ready for it before you receive it. It's just otherwise it's like, why are you asking me too many questions? I don't want to think, I don't want to tell you, like, so it's really important to have that like trust and safety.
Mm.
What else, what was the other question, like how would you?
How do I choose a coach if I'm interested? So, for instance, like I realize that I have a career problem. I want to talk to somebody experienced, and I feel like I'm stuck a little bit. So, how do I know how to choose a coach? Because there are a lot of coaches online right now.
Yeah, I think it's important to talk to different coaches, to be honest,
Mm.
to see if you, it's kind of like chemistry, if you like their coaching style, um if genuinely, like if there's chemistry. A lot of coaches call the first session as like a chemistry session. Um and for me, for example, in the first session, I now just get into, after the introduction, we just like enter into a coaching session because it's easier to show someone coaching versus tell them about coaching. So through that, they can kind of, the question is like, should we continue this versus, oh, can I still see how you coach? So it's just like, you really
Mm.
should understand, like when you choose a coach, it's important to see like, um can you connect with them, like do you like their coaching style? um yeah, and after that like chemistry session, like do you feel like you moved forward? I wouldn't put so much weight on like one session to like be life changing, but you can still feel like, am I energized to come back, do more work, move forward?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then
I
obviously
see
like
what you
there are
mean.
certifications, and um like the coaches are bound by like, it's good to be bound by like the International Coaching Federation or like the Association of Coaching, which like ties you to like an ethical kind of body. So it's good to be like like kind of attached or like tied to these ethical standards.
Yeah, so it's good to have some sort of formal training in this
Yeah,
and be a member of the professional association. So that's a really interesting, the chemistry session, I like how you call it. So I guess it's really interesting that the first session is something that it's commonly done for free, right, with coaches?
I think every
To
coach
give.
has their own. Yeah,
Mhm.
I personally do it for free. Some coaches are like,
Yeah,
because it's a lot of work as well. I mean, so it's some
yeah.
people. So it depends on like where the coach is, their time availabilities, and whether they choose to charge for it or not.
Yeah, but probably there is some introductory prices, I guess, for the first session
Yeah,
just to
exactly.
see,
Yeah, I've
to give
seen that
you.
as well.
Yeah. That's really interesting because for me, like in my visa coaching, at some point I've stopped giving free sessions in the beginning. Although it's a different kind of coaching. It's more like consulting on certain like immigration topics. So I think it's less about the chemistry, but it's more about the information. But also, of course, chemistry is important. But also, like what I found is that I don't think it's. I think it's a bit weird because given that I'm on YouTube all the time, people who come to me, they already know me a bit, right? So
Yes.
they know kind of my kind of style, how I talk, how I look, and if they don't like me, if they're annoyed by me, they can just not come to me. But I guess the question is: have you ever had cases where you had to say to somebody that you don't want to work with them after first session? Does it happen at all?
Wait, I need to think.
Complex question.
Um,
Like that the feel like you just feel that the energy is not right, and it's just like sometimes it's very hard to explain, like, but you just pick up on some signal or something that the person says that you don't feel comfortable with.
yeah.
And I guess the question is, I've had it. So for me, it was
Oh, you've
really
had it. Really? That's
yeah.
interesting.
So for me, it was difficult, like to say why I don't want to go on kind of with the program, right? So yeah, and again, like it happens super rarely, like almost doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And when once I stopped doing free sessions, it almost stopped
Oh,
because then I think people are more serious because they are serious about doing it and they're not just like testing the waters and talking to 100 people, trying to get like
free.
free consultations everywhere because I think that like
Yeah.
immigration stuff is very specific. You just ask a question and you get an answer. It's not like we're helping a person work through an issue. So I guess it's very different, but still it's interesting how this is done. And in terms of like how do you communicate to somebody, like how do you fire a client basically? I guess
Yeah.
that's a that's a
I
complex
guess I'm
question.
lucky enough that I haven't had that experience, but I'm sure like it will come up at some point. I guess luckily like most of my work has been like through referrals. Um,
Yeah.
so
Oh yeah. I would say that the referrals are always great, and it's just that again for me, like just to set the record straight, it maybe happened like once or twice or something like this. So it's super rare. It's just that I interact with a lot of people, and yeah, sometimes you meet some strange people. But yeah, I guess it's another question, like how do I fire a customer? But yeah, I've had to do it, and I had to like, uh, explain why we can't really work together, kind of give a reason, and I did the refund of the session, and that's basically it.
oh
So
wow. So you decided
yeah,
after the session.
yeah, yeah. I had that. So
It's
yeah,
good to follow
it's
your
a,
gut feeling. I mean, it's important. It's just
but
yeah,
also like sometimes
hard.
you don't follow it because I think we're very much taught to just trust our mind and not our gut feeling so much in our society, and it's like, okay, so like logically everything's fine, but you don't feel good, and sometimes you ignore this feeling and then you regret it very often. So I think I don't know, I'm just a big believer in intuition and just trust in your gut, because I think there's a lot of information that you can't verbalize, but it's there.
Yeah.
uh, yeah so yeah, career coaching. So you do career coaching, but I know that there are also like other kinds of coaching, right? So there is like, I heard something about life coaching, and there are like people who coach in different other specialties. So so what kind of specialties exist there so that people can understand and orient themselves?
Yeah, there is like life coaching, there is like there's like nutritional coaching, there's
Yeah.
yeah, there's like, I guess like it's so many like different names. Like there's like you can call it like executive coaching, leadership coaching. Um, Ultimately, I think like coaching is like a skill, and like even like with career coaching, like the entry topic is career, but I think like we're at work like 70% of our days, so it's kind of like an entry point to like talking about like the entire like life setup of some person. So um yeah, it's yeah, and also like the topics in coaching, even like leadership, like the even I call it like career coaching, but I also coach people within organizations who, for example, are like new managers who have like a new team and kind of, okay, how do I be a better manager, or like how can I be more confident in front of like these like super senior stakeholders. um it's kind of like different topics for different people. So career coaching isn't only about like career change, but also within my career, how can I be effective, like an effective leader, like empathetic to my team, supportive to my team, and grow in the direction that I want.
So are you thinking about expanding your coaching in the future towards like more, as you said, like more broader life sessions, or do you think that you will focus on the career coaching for the future, for the near future?
I think for now, I enjoy the career aspect. I like coaching people within organizations. I also do some like culture consulting as well for some organizations. How do you build like teams that function well together? Yeah, how can we like decide on like the values of the organization so that more people can be aligned to them. So I like the context of the organization, I like the context of work. I also think it's, if people are more like effective and happy at work, like doing something that they're good at and something that the world needs, like it's kind of impact at a larger scale, so they're doing a more impactful job, so we can like, I care about like mission driven, as like cliche as it sounds, but like what drove me towards this is like helping people. So if I help people be better at their work, be more satisfied, like they can be their full selves at work, then like they will be more effective at whatever mission that they're working towards. So I do like the culture of like the context of organizations. I don't know where it could lead me
Yeah.
as well. I don't know, but for now, I feel like there's a lot to learn within organizations as well, and I like that part of it also, because even in organizations there's like different stakeholders. There's a person that you're coaching, there's the manager, and then there's you. So how do you manage that three-way relationship between the client, the manager, and the coach? So I find that fascinating, and yeah, I'm enjoying it so far.
Yeah. So I guess you don't regret quitting your job and going full time in your business? No.
No, I don't. How are you feeling on your second day of
Yeah, second day of being a full time entrepreneur. Yeah, it feels really great. I think it feels very strange. I have to really learn a lot of habits, and I think that there is also a kind of, maybe you can share more about it. Like I feel that there is a difference in mentality and the way you make decisions as an employee or as an entrepreneur, and you need to develop kind of different sides to yourself in terms of how you think, how you make decisions. So for me, it helped that I started doing coaching on the side while also having a job, and it helped me learn how to be in this position of coaching people, charging them, and being responsible for the result as well. But yeah, I think a lot of real learning from me and getting used to the fact that like I can just make like my goal is to make Monday a day off, which is like really strange, but it's just something that I want to do. I'm still like working through a backlog of things that I need to go through because I was kind of putting off stuff. But yeah, once I'm done with that, my goal is to have like a weird day off at some day when wouldn't be possible at the corporate job. And like, yeah, I had like a flexible job, but it's still different, because like if you have a corporate job, like it would be quite weird for you just to wake up on a Monday and go to the beach, when people are working in your team, right? So like in theory you can take time off, but you have to tell somebody, you kind of have to I don't know, ask for permission, kind of, in a way. So for me, I think just getting used to the fact that I don't have to do it anymore. It's really it's like an exciting part of the process. But yeah, otherwise it feels great. Is there anything that you miss about like corporate world or startup world, or like working for somebody? You know.
I love the people I worked with. Yeah, so I definitely miss some of the people I worked with. It's also like it's like having like a preset community of people that you see regularly is nice for sure. Now it's like you have to be proactive to making sure you have that community around, which is nice. I guess you can also design who you want in, who do you want to surround yourself with. Yeah, I guess like with the corporate world, obviously there's like the stability, like it's like yeah, that like that part of course is like comforting. Not anymore, of course, like with the layoffs,
Yeah.
I guess it's not the same with this current
Yeah.
as well. But in general, like yeah, I do miss the people for sure. But then
I think
I'm surrounded by a lot of lovely people now as well. So
but
you
also I think in this in the kind of coaching world we interact with a lot of people, so I like I don't feel like I'm missing communication that much yet. But also I think my role most recently, it was quite autonomous in the sense that I didn't have like my own DevRel team, so it was kind of me a lot of the time doing things mostly on my own. So for me it's not such a big change, to be honest. I guess it would be different if I quit after being a software engineer, which I was before. So there, I think one thing that was really great about being a software engineer is like constantly having a team, and no matter like how bad things could get at some point, with the project or with something happening in the company, you always had that community of people doing the same thing, and it's really something that really helped. And I guess as a business person, you need to figure out a way to get support on your own. But I think that also like having a coach for somebody who's an entrepreneur is really useful, just to talk things through. I am thinking that I do want to connect with more and very specific, more women running service businesses. Because I think that the things that, and also like I don't know, like I need to talk to more people, and it's to see that things that kind of the challenges and the just weird things that happen, whether they are something that a lot of people go through, or is it like something that maybe specific to some of my patterns or something like this, and just the challenges and the learnings that happen. I think it's very useful to have some sort of community, like a mastermind or something like this. And I think it's very cool to connect with people, like to create like a niche topic that you're interested in and connect with people there. Like you don't have to, I don't know, join like wide communities of people. You can just be super niche and connect with people there.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Like
because it's very different. It's very specific because also I think it also depends on the industry as well, and like what happens there. Because again, like for instance, if you're a founder and you have a digital product, if you're built an app and you're selling an app, then you have very different problems. And for you, I think it's more useful to connect with people who are selling a SaaS app. And then if you're selling a service as a coaching or consulting, then it's like very different challenges that you go through.
Yeah, we can think about this line. I like this.
Yeah. We should totally do that.
Like tech specifically as well, like working with people with tech.
So like again, like I guess like my clients I'm kind of dipping into the art world now and kind of talking to some people who are going through the art council endorsement for the global talent visa, which is a very difficult, different demographic, different people applying for that visa. Clearly, also not just because they have different achievements and different documents that they will submit, but it's just that they're completely different people in the way they communicate. Just a different world, basically. Like a musician and a programmer, they would be completely different in the way they interact with me, the way they talk, the way they connect. And this is a massive generalization, but generalizations can be useful as well. So it's a different world, and you need to learn to communicate with people differently. And I think this is exciting. But I guess most of my clients are still tech professionals. Is it true for you as well?
Yeah, as hearing you say that, I am coaching like a couple of artists as well.
Mm.
It's like for me, it's also new because it's kind of like a window to this amazing world that is like this is kind of what happens in the background, and um, yeah, so majority is within tech, but I
Mm.
do have like different, just probably most of them are like referrals from people I coached. And for me, tech and also healthcare, like also coaching people within like biotech and not
Yeah.
necessarily in like technology teams. So biotech, healthcare. Um, I
Yeah.
think, yeah. And then, yeah, some like people like wanting to choose like what to study in university, what's how to like getting their first job. So kind of these are like the other like like other areas also of, like where I coach. But yeah, majority are still in like healthcare
Hmm.
like world.
Yeah. Really
Yeah.
interesting. So for people who are listening to this and they, are very excited about the stuff, but they still aren't sure whether they need a coach or not, and like how do they decide? What kind of problems can you potentially help them with?
Um yeah, I'm thinking about people who are watching, probably like thinking about like moving countries,
Yeah.
getting a job
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
new country. Like some of the like I've coached people kind of um getting to the UK, like finding a job here, like navigating like where do I even start? And some people, for example, like I coached someone who kind of started like applying widely, but then through coaching understood, okay, this is kind of his like specific background. And then once that was like specified, it was easier for employers to understand, okay, this is more translatable. So he started getting more like interviews and um, more calls. So kind of coaching people in terms of selecting like where to what to do, where to work, and like navigating that process. Also like moving countries is hard, so like navigating that like that change through coaching could be
Hmm.
helpful. And then yeah, I think I spoke about the other like cases where it's like
Yeah.
you're in a job and like uncertain either how to grow or whether it's the right one for you or how to make it better. These are some of the
Yeah, but
situations.
I think specifically to my audience, I think this stuff will be interesting because again, this is something that people ask me about finding a job in the UK. How do I translate my experience to the British market? How do I find a job? Because maybe people, they like some people are experienced immigrants and they have no trouble with it, but a lot of people they kind of are moving. A lot of them are moving kind of urgently because of various events that happen, and they need to like urgently figure out how to find a job. And I think this is where a coach can really help. And I think like if you are moving in general, like it's a very hard process, and I think we don't fully understand just how difficult it can be, and we don't fully give ourselves the support and the time that we need to do it. It just kind of like happens, like you move, like you don't know anything about the country, but you're supposed to do everything, like find a job, find apartment, find friends, figure out how to stay. Like it's just like no big deal, right? But generally, I think getting support at this point is super crucial. Maybe like if you can't afford the coach or like some kind of help, I think there is still a lot of free resources and like free support groups. There's free mentorship programs. There is like a lot of free kind of support help you can get, and I think it's generally super useful for anybody.
Exactly.
I'm very curious how did you tie your kind of coaching experience and your coaching training to your global talent visa application, because you mentioned that you used it. What was the angle that you presented it with?
Kind kind of tying it to um sorry, I was still thinking about like moving countries and stuff because
Yeah, we
also
can talk about that
sorry,
as well.
just once on that, like some people like don't even realize like how like recruitment works in the UK and like access to like certain like job or like
Yeah.
headhunters is important. So I'm now thinking about like building like these types of relationships so I could help people when they move to the UK, or looking
Mm.
to jobs, connecting them with the right like headhunters so that because in different countries, different cities have different like ways to apply to a job. Sometimes it's on a website, sometimes it's through recruiters, sometimes it's just through like referrals. So it's really important when you get here to understand how does this job market work. Yeah, just wanted to add on there. In
Oh,
terms of,
that's super important. Yeah. I think it's great that you brought it up. It's super different. I on my YouTube, I will attach this video. Like I had a big explainer. Like I compared how to find a job in Poland and the UK
oh
as a tech,
really?
tech person. Yeah, and it was like it's super different. And for me, it was actually it's one of the most popular. It's the most popular video on my channel. So obviously it's track record. So the UK market, job market, is very strange. Like it's super different from the European market. So yeah, definitely this is great tip. So yeah, if you need help, reach out to Dina, watch my video, and
Yeah,
just
I
look
want to
for
also
support.
watch it. I'm
Yeah.
curious now.
Yeah, it's just that it's not like I shouldn't assume that it's the same everywhere. It's not the same. So that's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good point.
I had no idea. I didn't know like recruiters existed, to be honest, when I first came.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you asked me how did I tie my coaching.
Yeah.
I read it like today in my application. It was like how coach like my vision is like to continue coaching people within the tech space, and then through that contribute more widely to that space. So that's kind of like the angle, and I think one of the requirements was like coaching and mentorship.
Mhm.
So that was like the criteria that it satisfied.
Yeah. Yeah, so they do want to see also like how you will use the global talent visa in the future, and I think it's helpful if you have other ideas for which kind of things you want to do that like a normal skilled worker visa wouldn't cover, especially if you are currently on a skilled worker. So I think that's important to emphasize as well. So looking back at your experience and getting the visa, I think it's obvious that you're very happy that you got it, that it allowed you to stay in the country and also build a business, which I think is super cool. And I do think that we should advocate for more people embarking on this journey. And maybe, I think that like a lot of things are maybe like having a startup and like having a unicorn are very glamorous, but also I think having any kind of business on a small scale is super cool and glamorous as well. So obviously it gave you all these opportunities, but like looking back on your experience getting the visa, was there anything challenging about it, or maybe any lessons that you learned during this process, any tips that you would like to share with people who have a similar background to yours, maybe product background that you wanted to share, maybe just to start to wrap up?
I think it helped that I remember in the application, like they wanted you to have like a sector, not just like tech generally. Like they wanted you to be like specific in like a vertical within tech. So I think it helped that my experiences and like all throughout was like this story around my experience and how I contributed into like health tech specifically, and how that is like what's driving me forward. So I think like being specific around like your niche within tech and what and like product, for example, like health tech product management, I think is like I think that was like a differentiating factor, like because it's like kind of known pathway to like contribution. I think that's like a tip I would share. And what else? So something that was challenging. I think go to Nadia if there's anything challenging.
Nice.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I actually like even before I met you, Nadia, shared your website with someone I
Nice.
was
Thank
coaching,
you.
because it's like super helpful advice, and it's also up to date. Like whatever I will say now is also like you need to take it with a grain of salt. So you're like super up to date, super passionate. So
Yeah.
and also it's like life changing, like the type of support you're giving people. So if also you offer like a lot of free stuff. So if people can't afford it, like, watch all of your videos, and if they can,
Yeah.
definitely work with you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for this. Actually, yeah, as I said, like there is a lot of free information, a lot of free stuff both on my website and here on YouTube. So I'll just share I'll just share this link. So this is on my website. There is like free resources and do-it-yourself resources. So if you are watching this and you find my services outside of your budget, I think there are ways to apply for the visa yourself. And this is, again, my take as a global talent visa coach, that you don't have to have a coach to get endorsed. And yeah, my YouTube, if you are not there yet, I just suggest that you check it out. If you're watching this on LinkedIn especially, I'll just paste the link so that you can check it out and subscribe. So there is a lot of information and a lot of interviews like the one that we had today. So I've interviewed already a lot of people. So a lot of software engineers, a lot of product managers, entrepreneurs, designers, business applicants of various kinds, like sales professionals, business execs, and various other professions, data scientists, machine learning specialists. So there is like a huge library of information there. So like generally, there is no excuse, I think, not to try, at least to try, right? Because then if you don't try, I don't know. I think if I didn't try, I would forever regret it. And the visa just changed my life completely. So I'm super grateful for the opportunity. But also I know that I benefited a lot from free content that was available on this visa. When I was applying, I applied on my own. I didn't have a coach. So like I'm trying to pay it back to the community as well, and communicate a lot about it and share a lot of stuff for free so that other people can do it who can't afford help or don't want to work with somebody, which I also understand. So budget is important. Also, you need a lot of money to move to the UK, so it helps. So we had some thanks for the wonderful session. Thank you so much for the comment. I'm happy that you enjoyed it. I think we've covered a lot of ground. We talked about the visa, we talked about coaching. I think we will encourage a couple of people to reach out and check out your coaching packages for themselves as well. I hope that this was useful for people. And there was kudos to Nadia for the effort as always. And thank you so much. And kudos to my guest, because without the guest, there wouldn't be live stream. So I'm very, very grateful to you, Dina, for your time today. Thank you so much for devoting the time out of your busy life to this session. I'm sure it will be valuable for many people in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Nadia. I hope that was helpful. And thank you, everyone, for watching.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching, for tuning in. I know a lot more people will be watching this as a recording. If you're watching this as a recording, also make sure to leave a comment. If you have questions, I will make sure to answer them. Wish everybody a lovely evening and a week ahead. Bye.
Good luck. Bye-bye.